Welcome back to Fresh Faces New Ideas. My name is David. If you're new to the channel or you'd like to keep up with the things that I do, please like and subscribe. Please follow me on Twitter at Faces Ideas. Now, for this video, we're going to go over the joint session to Congress last night for President Biden. It wasn't technically a State of the Union. I don't understand why it wasn't called that, but that's not the point. So we're going to cover this in a couple different parts. This is basically going to him recapping the last 100 days and the effect that the American Rescue Plan has had on the country and the positives that have come off from it. Overall, this speech was kind of interesting. When we get to him pushing for other policies, there's going to be a lot more criticism. But just this particular one is going to be covering what he's done so far. So let's get into that.
I have the high privilege and distinct honor to present to you the President of the United States.
So yes, obviously the fact that Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris are both women is historic. So there's that.
All of this pomp and circumstance is going to take a little less time than usual because of this.
Mitch and Chuck will understand it's good to be almost home. Down the hall. Anyway, thank you all. Madam Speaker, Madam Vice President. No president has ever said those words from this podium. No president has ever said those words. And it's about time.
For people who are unaware, the reason when you see shots of the people sitting around and there's a whole bunch of empty seats, it's not because, as Dinesh D'Souza pointed out, people who didn't get the invite, there was a limited number of people coming. It's like one Supreme Court, it's like the Supreme Court justice. It's only two members of the staff of the cabinet. Mark Milley is the Joint Chief of the military, and then it's like 200 Congress people, I think, in total, or for each side. It's a much smaller, like normally it's all of government. It's all the Supreme Court justices. That's why they generally have the designated survivor, but they didn't have it for this time because of the pandemic protocols. They didn't have everybody fill it out.
First Lady, I'm her husband. Second gentleman, Chief Justice, members of the United States Congress and the Cabinet, distinguished guests, my fellow Americans. While the setting tonight is familiar, this gathering is just a little bit different. A reminder of the extraordinary times we're in. Throughout our history, presidents have come to this chamber to speak to Congress, to the nation, and to the world, to declare war, to celebrate peace, to announce new plans and possibilities. Tonight, I come to talk about crisis and opportunity, about rebuilding the nation, revitalizing our democracy, and winning the future for America. I stand here tonight, one day shy of the 100th day of my administration. 100 days since I took the oath of office and lifted my hand off our family Bible and inherited a nation we all did that was in crisis. The worst pandemic in a century. The worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. The worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
Now, this is obviously going to, this particular line, I think it was pre-planned, like they give out some of the talking points before it happens. This particular line, they're like, oh, well, 9/11 was a bigger attack on our democracy. What he's referring to is the January 6th attack. Now, I do agree with him on this because 9/11 was different. 9/11 wasn't an attack on American democracy. It was an attack on America as a whole. The January 6th attack was specifically to upturn the democracy in America. Regardless of how poorly planned it was or how poorly executed it was, that was the purpose. So that's the difference.
Now, after just 100 days, I can report to the nation, America is on the move again.
Speaking of as today, because it is Thursday, the jobs numbers came out and they were, I mean, they're still not great. The unemployment numbers, they're still over 500,000, but it was the first time in a while I've seen it with less than 700,000. So this was good for jobs numbers too.
Turning peril into possibility, crisis to opportunity, setbacks into strength. We all know life can knock us down, but in America, we never, ever, ever stay down. Americans always get up. Today, that's what we're doing. America's rising anew, choosing hope over fear, truth over lies, and light over darkness. After 100 days of rescue and renewal, America's ready for a takeoff, in my view. We're working again, dreaming again, discovering again, and leading the world again. We have shown each other and the world that there's no quit in America, none. 100 days ago, America's house was on fire. We had to act.
I mean, it's literally be a little more than 100 days ago that the insurrection happened. But look, a lot of this is platitudes. You know, they all have to say all this pomp and circumstance. America's back. America's leading the way. I mean, these are good. This is what people want because according to polling, 85% of people approved of this speech.
And thanks to the extraordinary leadership of Speaker Pelosi, Majority Leader Schumer, and the overwhelming support of the American people, Democrats, Independents, and Republicans, we did act. Together, we passed the American Rescue Plan.
Now, this is going to be one of my big issues with this speech. He did not go after Republicans hard enough. Yes, it is true that they passed the American Rescue Plan, but Republicans fought it at every single turn. They offered a terrible bipartisan argument. It was a third of the size. It was not adequate. It's also worth mentioning that every single thing Joe Manchin touched turned to shit, and it was made worse by him having an opinion on it. And that's why I believe, as dangerous as the Republican Party's general stance is, the centrism is the true threat because they're the ones who's deciding, you know what, the American people want these things, but we're not going to give it to them because we have to slow walk everything for this fake idea of bipartisanship.
One of the most consequential rescue packages in American history.
It's also worth noting the last two Democratic presidents that came after a Republican president have had to start their administration with a massive rescue plan bailout. Just food for thought.
We're already seeing the results. We're already seeing the results. After I promised we'd get 100 million COVID-19 vaccine shots into people's arms in 100 days, we will have provided over 220 million COVID shots.
So look, the Republicans argue, oh, well, you know, he didn't give any credit to Donald Trump. No, look, the Trump administration did the right thing in prepaying all these corporations to do it. Not all the vaccines were paid for by Operation Warp Speed, but you have to remember, Donald Trump promised that they would have 20 million shots by the end of his administration. That was one of his things. They got about 5. Part of what the Joe Biden administration has done that is incredible is just the logistical effort to get all of these vaccines out. And I've said this over and over again. Had we had a true testing site, similar to what South Korea had, where they had drive-through testing, things like that, we could have easily transformed those into vaccine sites. The Trump administration had no plan. Their plan was figure it out by the states. We know this because that's what their documents have shown. So yeah, this is not a credit to Donald Trump, because part of the reason we're doing so badly, and currently we've slowed down a lot. If you think about how Joe Biden inherited 400,000 deaths, and we're about like 570 now, and a vast majority of that came in the first month when we were still peaking. So a lot of things have changed, and had the Trump administration not screwed this up so terribly, we would be in a better spot even before this. Like, keep in mind, we're at almost 600,000 deaths. India has now hit like 1 million cases every 3 days, and they're just breaking the 200,000 deaths. We're so far and ahead of everybody else at how poorly we handled this. It is unimaginable.
In those 100 days. Thanks to all the help of all of you. We're marshaling, with your help, everyone's help, we're marshaling every federal resource. We've gotten vaccines to nearly 40,000 pharmacies and over 700 community health centers where the poorest of the poor can be reached. We're setting up community vaccination sites, developing mobile units to get to hard-to-reach communities.
And I've said this too, but I really hope a good thing that comes out of all this mobilization is the understanding that these places are not just medicine deserts, they're also food deserts. So figuring out how to get food to them more efficiently, figuring out how to get medicine to them more efficiently after this is going to make a massive difference in Americans' lives.
Today, 90% of Americans now live within 5 miles of a vaccination site. Everyone over the age of 16, everyone is now eligible to get vaccinated right now, right away. Go get vaccinated, America. Go and get the vaccination.
Now, obviously, he's pushing this because he wants you to get chipped. Because, look, you can't have this both ways, the people who argue against this. You can't say, I won't get vaccinated, but I want things to get back to normal. Because that's not how it's going to work. We saw what happened when people weren't vaccinated and they attempted to go back to normal. Hundreds of thousands of people died. If you get vaccinated, you can go back to normal. And this idea, oh, the government can't tell me what to do. Yes, they can. It is a pandemic. It is a massive health issue. If you are such an idiot that you think that you're going to get chipped and tracked by this vaccine while you have a cell phone, or that mask or child abuse, well, get vaccine and then go see a therapist to get help.
Available. You're eligible now. When I was sworn in on January 20th, less than 1% of the seniors in America were fully vaccinated against COVID-19. 100 days later, 70% of seniors in America over 65 are protected, fully protected. Senior deaths from COVID-19 are down 80% since January. Down.
Now remember, the Republican stance was screw you, kill grandma if it keeps the economy going. That's basically what Lieutenant Governor of Texas said. He said there's more important things than living, and the economy is one of them.
80% because of all of you. And more than half of all the adults in America have gotten at least one shot. A mass vaccination center in Glendale, Arizona, I asked the nurse, I said, what's it like? She looked at me and she said, it's like every shot is giving a dose of hope, was her phrase, a dose of hope. A dose of hope for an educator in Florida who has a child suffering from an autoimmune disease. Wrote to me, said she's worried, and she was worried about bringing the virus home. She said she then got vaccinated at a large site in her car. She said she sat in her car when she got vaccinated and just cried. Cried out of joy and cried out of relief. Parents, seeing the smiles on their kids' faces for those who are able to go back to school because the teachers and school bus drivers and cafeteria workers have been vaccinated. Grandparents.
Right? So this is the other thing. You're going to keep hearing Republicans, Jim Jordan of the GOP Twitter site always say that, Democrats want to keep your schools closed but open the border. Schools are open generally. Part of it was they weren't vaccinated. This is, if you remember the beginning of my channel, I would say, you do first responders, you do healthcare workers, you do teachers, and then that way you can get them back into school. The thing about getting vaccinated and wearing the mask is it's not about just protecting you. It's about protecting other people. What about the people who have autoimmune diseases? What about the people who are overweight? What about the people who are elderly? You have to protect the other people because we live in a society and that's how it works.
Hugging their children and grandchildren instead of pressing hands against a window to say goodbye. It means everything. Those things mean everything. There's still, you all know it. You know it better than any group of Americans. There's still more work to do to beat this virus. We can't let our guard down. But tonight, I can say, because of you, the American people, our progress these past 100 days against one of the worst pandemics in history has been one of the greatest logistical achievements this country's ever seen. What else have we done in those first 100 days? We kept our commitment, Democrats and Republicans, of sending $1,400 rescue checks to 85% of American households.
This is a problem because he does not specify, and this needs to be repeated over and over again. Every single Republican in Congress and the Senate said that you do not deserve $1,400 checks. They either said it with their vote, or as Ron Johnson said, you do not deserve it, period. He actually said that. So, this is a problem. I think during the speech, he is too soft on Republicans, and there's certainly a part where we're going to have to push harder back on them. But he should have made it clear, Republicans did not decide that you deserve that check.
We're already sent more than 160 million checks out the door. It's making a difference. You all know it when you go home. For many people, it's making all the difference in the world. The single mom in Texas who wrote me, she said she couldn't work. But she said the relief check put food on the table and saved her and her son from eviction from their apartment.
Now, look, as happy as some of these stories are, it's also worth mentioning part of the reason we are in this case and why these pittance that we were given is so upsetting is because of how other countries did it and how our country responded. It is worth repeating over and over again. Part of the reason that we fared so poorly in this pandemic is because we did the shittiest part of both worlds. We did not lock down hard enough to get control of the virus, and we did not support people while we locked down. So it led to people trying to work when they couldn't and they were sick, and that helped spread it. It also caused some people to close down. It caused people to lose their homes and things like that. If we had, from the start of the pandemic, instead of firing a massive money cannon, the largest upward transfer of wealth in the history of ever, to corporations, and actually put that money into the bottom, because it was documented that the $600 on top of unemployment was basically the only thing that kept this from going worse. If we had expanded that to monthly checks, our economy would not be in the place it is.
My grandmother in Virginia, who told me she immediately took her granddaughter to the eye doctor, something she said she put off for months because she didn't have the money. One of the defining images, at least from my perspective in this crisis, has been cars lined up for miles. And not people who just barely ever start those cars, nice cars, lined up for miles.
This is not a great line, and I'm happy more of this didn't get picked up. But just because you have a nice car or a poor car does not mean that you are poor. This is something only I remember because I'm a Spurs fan. When Kawhi was still in San Antonio, and he signed his after his rookie contract, there was a story that he still drove like a 95, a car from 95, and this was back in the end of the 2000, like the early 2010s. And he was a multi-millionaire. So just because you have a poor car or a nice car doesn't mean that you're not wealthy or not. And also, it doesn't matter. Even if you aren't wealthy, you shouldn't have to be going to a food bank in America.
Waiting for a box of food to be put in their trunk. I don't know about you, but I didn't ever think I'd see that in America. And all of this is through no fault of their own.
That's true. A lot of the reason that people got screwed on food, especially in southern states like Texas and Florida, is because they purposely made their unemployment system so difficult and so broken so that people could not use the system. And that's how they ended up in food banks and stuff.
No fault of their own, these people are in this position. That's why the rescue plan is delivering food and nutrition assistance to millions of Americans facing hunger. And hunger is down sharply already. We're also providing rental assistance. You all know this, but the American...
I think also, I'm going to have to look into this for tomorrow. Some part of the government said that it was covering all of student lunches, like student debts for 2021 into 2022, which the fact that we have student lunch debts is just wild.
People, I want to make sure they understand. Keeping people from being evicted from their homes. Providing loans to small businesses to reopen and keep their employees on the job. During these 100 days, an additional 800,000 Americans enrolled in the Affordable Care Act when I established a special sign-up period to do that. 800,000 in that period.
It could be more if you lower the eligibility of Medicare, which is something that they're proposing. It also could be more if you hadn't put so much money into COBRA, which is like the least efficient and most expensive way to do healthcare.
We're making one of the largest one-time ever investments, ever, in improving healthcare for veterans.
We should make a higher one because it's something like 22 veterans kill themselves every day, which is a stat that I've been known about for, at least 3 years. At least 3 years.
Critical investments to address the opioid crisis. And maybe most importantly, thanks to the American Rescue Plan, we're on track to cut child poverty in America in half this year.
Now, there's more to this. He does go into this later, saying he wants to make this permanent. But another way could have been raising the minimum wage. He does talk about that as well, but I'll get into that when he does. Oh, here's a fun little shocker. These are all Republicans. They don't seem to be happy that child poverty got cut in half. That's actually a pretty reoccurring theme, depending on which stream you're watching this. This is the NBC one. But there'll be points where they cut to Republicans, and they're just, like, angry that certain things are happening, like clean water or stuff.
And in the process, while this was all going on, the economy created more than 1,300,000 new jobs in 100 days.
Now, let's be clear. When people say the economy's coming back, we lost something like 20 million jobs during this. So 1.3 is not anywhere near close to getting full unemployment back. So what we would need to do is to invest heavily in a jobs program. And I wonder if there's a possibility for that.
More jobs in the first 100 days than any president on record.
Obviously, this is something similar to what happened. I think something during Trump happened where there was like a massive jobs gain. It was like half of this in one day, and it was like the largest single jobs gain in history. But it came from like the value was like we had all these jobs and then we lost all these jobs and then it went up slightly. But because of where we were to where it went, the percentage was so high because we had lost so many jobs. It looked good. So just because you've created all those jobs, it's not because you've like done something magical. A lot of it is simply the recovery that was going to happen. Once we start hitting closer to the 20 million jobs having returned, then we can start judging, when will these policies have affect things. So the economic recovery is starting. Let's see how far it goes.
The International Monetary Fund The International Monetary Fund is now estimating our economy will grow at a rate of more than 6% this year.
This is also the same thing that I was just referring to because of how poorly we did under the pandemic and how bad things were. Even modicum growth looks massive because of where we started.
That will be the fastest pace of economic growth in this country in nearly 4 decades.
Also, remember, I believe Donald Trump was bragging about that we would have somewhere between 3 and 4% growth every year, and I'm pretty sure we did not.
Moving forward, but we can't stop now. We're in competition with China and other countries to win the 21st century. We're at a great inflection point in history.
Okay, well, on that note, we're gonna cut this one. We're gonna cut this one up. So yes, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Please follow me on Twitter at FaceIdeas. So this first video is good. Look, the American Rescue Plan was a solid piece of legislation. It did a lot of good. Could it have done way better? Absolutely. I have had multiple videos talking about this. You can find almost any streamer on the left argue about, why did you do more? So thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.